So Karl Marx, philosopher and socio-economist, said that social progress can be measured by the social status of women. Today, countries with more gender equality have more economic growth. Companies with more women leaders are growing faster. And of course, peace agreements that include women are more durable. Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is absolutely clear that in the social and the political sphere, women have bravely imagined a better world. They fiercely initiated and steered social progress. The question really is, how did they start? How did they keep the dream alive? And most importantly, what keeps them going? This is our next conversation. May I please call on stage Outlook Business Editor N Mahalakshmi, moderator of this session. And ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for 4 women who have not let power structures intimidate them. First up, Shaheen Mistri, founder and CEO, Akansha Foundation, Teach for India. We're also joined by Vijay Lakshmi Das, Friends of Women's World Banking, India. Keep the claps coming as I welcome on stage Rukshmani Kumari, founder, Star Foundation, and member of the royal family of Chomu, Rajasthan. And Sunita Krishnan, co-founder, Prajwala. Ms. Mahalakshmi, over to you.
Thank you. This is such an honor and privilege to be moderating this discussion with 4 absolutely wonderful, wonderful women, wonderful human beings who have committed their lives to making change in an area that they have chosen. I'm not even going to attempt to describe the kind of work that they have put in. We might as well hear it from the horse's mouth. Because whatever I may say is going to be not enough to bring out what they are doing and how they are steering towards a more equal society. Shaheen, let me start with you. For the first 18 years of your life, you were not even in India. I read that you went around 13 countries, and at 18 you came to India. How did you even get sensitized to this problem of education, the need gap in education amongst slum dwellers, which is what got you started in this space? Just tell us about what was that trigger, what was the inspiration, what was the starting point?
So I think growing up abroad, we would come back and visit grandparents in India. And I think all of you have probably had this experience where you fly back into India. And I'm from Mumbai. And when you fly back into Mumbai, you see disparity in a way that you can't look away. And so I would go back and forth between these 2 lives. And that combined with, from a very early age, at 12, I started volunteering and realized that I just loved kids. And more than kids, I loved the idea that opportunity could really enable each and every child to be who he or she was destined to be. So I think those forces came together, and I just walked into a community at 18, dropped out of university in the US, sat down and started teaching, and my journey just started from there.
Take us through your journey.
So it's very simple. It was no big idea at all. I felt I had had a great education. and I loved being with kids, and so I started teaching myself. I didn't know the first thing about teaching when I started, but took small little steps, believed a lot that we had everything in this country that we needed to educate our children. We just needed to have more will, and we needed to work more together. So I started at 18 a little college project called Akansha that grew into a program that today runs schools for some of the poorest children, trying to give them the most excellent education that we can possibly give them. And then 17 years after doing that, I realized that we were still touching so few children, and I saw the immense potential of education. And so I started a second organization called Teach for India, which is trying to build a movement of people around the country who will not stop until the last child in India is actually educated. So long journey ahead, but that's a little bit of my journey.
Sure. Ma'am, you were doing your dissertation in Madras College when you really found this need gap in microfinance. And I don't think it was called microfinance at that time. They were just money lenders who were lending money at exorbitant rates, and they were needy people. And I don't think that was a buzzword at that time at all. Yeah. And decades ago. So what gave you that? Of course, the insight was clear that, poor people did not have access to credit. But were you able to envision what you wanted to do, how to take it forward, how to scale it up? What was clear to you then? What got you started, and how did you build it?
Oh, I didn't know how you got the information about my dissertation. Oh, I did it during my MA days in Pondicherry. So dissertation was in the village and then rural credit. I realized that the rural population borrows at 360% or something like that. So it works out to be like that. And then how they manage their lives, and then they get into the cycle of poverty, and then they cannot come out. So I was just looking for an opportunity to work. It came in Elabad called me, and then can you work with women, but low-income household women? So when I started, there were lots of things happening in India, because there are lots of successful cooperatives for rural women, and then also SHG movement was picking up, and microfinance. Many development organizations were involved in microfinance. So we thought that instead of directly working with the poor, it is important to encourage and strengthen the institutions that are providing the services. That way we can reach out to a larger number of women in the country. So that is how FWW, Friends of Women's World Banking, was known as first lender for almost all the microfinance institutions in the country. So we were at one point of time, we were working with 200 organizations across 17 states. But the question was that financial inclusion is a very tough job to work, because I must have gone to I must have met lots of RBI governors, and then CMDs of banks and all, but convincing them to set aside a huge fund for the poor was quite difficult. And they were thrilled in giving it to your intermediary, but not to the poor directly. So it is still a challenge. So we work with farmer producer companies across the country. They have to become a company because legally there is no other form available. Otherwise, people would like to organize cooperatives. So in that, if you really see, the women spend 85% of the time in agriculture operations, but she doesn't own the land. So because she doesn't own the land, she is not eligible to get any sources of credit or any other marketing facilities and all. So we thought that maybe we will work through the collectives. So as an entrepreneur, whether I am eligible to this forum or not, but institution-wise, we believe in collectivization of the poor to have an access to resources and also to the rights. So that is what we are working. Maybe in microfinance, we have directly reached out to more than 15 million women over the years. And then now we are working with about 75 small and marginal farmer collectives. Plus, we create entrepreneurs among the women. So we don't directly, like I don't know how to make money, but I can teach people how to make money.
Sure.
So the entrepreneurs program is every year we generate a training program. So we handhold women, particularly low-income household women, and help them to become entrepreneurs in rural areas as well as in urban areas. So every year we train about 10,000 women, and then also we set up a separate fund because in spite of training, women cannot get access to resources. So it is important for us to create a fund. I'm still struggling to make a big fund available to the women entrepreneurs. But inspiring stories, you can hear from them because they struggle, they have poverty, and then they have lots of other responsibility. But still, they are becoming successful entrepreneurs is quite inspiring for people like us with so much of qualification. And I was lucky to get lots of education and all, but without education, without access to resources, the way they come up is very good. I think they are the hope for India too.
Absolutely.
If it is recognized.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ma'am, before we move on to the next speaker, I just want you to elaborate on the first 5 years of your journey. When you got started, you decided that this is what you want to do. What did you do in the first 5 years? Because that part is a real blank. I tried to look up, but I couldn't.
I am an economist by training, so I have done all those things. But first, I have to demystify myself. First of all, I have to realize that the women knew more. I keep on saying women because we work with women, so we don't work with anyone else. So we felt that in spite of the status at which they are, they understand the money economy very well. And they know what is the difference between different interest rates, and they know about investment. Only thing is they don't know. So first thing we have done it is how to stop ourselves from talking the language we were taught in colleges. So demystifying became very difficult for us to tell the people. But after some time, it was very comfortable because you realize the strength of the other side. So based on that, you work it out. And this work needs passion. You need less money, but passion. I must have spent about 20 to 30 days in a month in the field. So I had my children, and then they were left out. And then Ritu was talking about why it is important to become economically empowered, the women. That is what we believe as an institution. It was very difficult to raise money and then convince the bankers to work for poor and all those things. But the qualification which we had acquired, because if we know Seva and Seva related organization, most of us are highly qualified people who decided to work in the self-employed sector. Because of that, all of us used to go and then do policy level changes and then accessing money from the banks and all, which became very easy. But it was a struggle from the family side, because you are hardly seen by the family. And the children grew up. Now there is no problem, it's on their own. But raising resources was very tough. And in India, that you compete with the government all the time. So because it's not like other countries, Africa, I get jealous of African counterparts who can grow faster. In India, there are lots of programs, lots of schemes by the government, which actually work as a deterrent to growth. Sure. So we have to struggle and then empower people like that and all.
Sure.
So it was
your journey. I mean, you are working in a similar area, essentially trying to empower women, working around their livelihoods. And now you're also, apart from the women community, you're also looking at how to market those enterprises. Where did your journey really start, and how has it been so far?
Thank you so much for a lovely question. I just wanted to share a bit about my life. I am a Fauji's wife. I mean, my husband passed away in 2011 in Kashmir. So it's definitely a very difficult day for me also today, seeing all around. But when he passed away, we started a foundation called Star Foundation, and where the name Star Foundation comes from is, if you have seen a uniform, they have stars, you know, and my son used to, I have a 13-year-old son now, and he used to call his father Star, and there the Star Foundation, the NGO which I've started since last few years, and we've started working in the rural Rajasthan, and we work for women and children. It has been really challenging, you know, coming from a royal family and a Rajput family, a very restricted kind of a family, and after the husband passes away, it's, you all know what kind of a situation a widow has, and what she has to go through, and how you stand up in that kind of a situation. And my family was fantastic. I had a great family support, but if you have all known about Rajasthan, it's definitely very, very strict, if you say. But how I came across and what challenges I had to go through is very, very difficult. And 13th day of when my husband passed away, I was in the office. So I think when problems come in your life, I think you don't run away, but face it. That's the most important thing. Every woman, I think, women sitting here, I think I would like to say that face it, you know. Problems can, the way she said that you have to empower yourself, you have to work. It's very important. हमें नहीं पता कि कल क्या होने वाला है. You can have a divorce, how she said, you can have your husband can pass away, anything. I mean, so it's very important to empower yourself and stand up. So I mean, that's the story, a little bit of story. I can just go on and on from my childhood, and a lot to say, but I think we are on a time scale also. But so with Star Foundation, this is how we started. We really didn't want it to be named as Major Aditya Singh Foundation or something. I thought if ever I am not there in this world, I can pass this foundation to anybody. I mean, anybody can work. Any foundation should have that kind of a vision. Is that what I started? So we started with a Star Shoe project initially to start with smaller children. That just not giving away shoe was our idea. Our idea was to get them to school, to teach them hygiene. So, so we started Star Foundation, the Star Shoe project. We started Star Vriksha Abhiyan, telling children to adopt plantation. We started Star Mahila Rozgar programs, where we have छोटे छोटे गाँव में हमारे सिलाई केंद्र हैं, छोटे छोटे काम करते हैं. पर मुझे लगता है हमें सोसाइटी में देखना है कि क्या ज़रूरी है और वो ही कार्य करना है. मतलब that is what I have started doing it. We cannot change the whole world. We start with one. I have started it. I think you can all join in, and I suppose the change is definitely going to happen. It's that is what a little bit story about Star Foundation, how we've started. Ji.
Sunita, you have the most heart-wrenching story, or should I say heart-wrenching or numbing story? Just
I wouldn't think back. So. No. I think I have the most transformational story because I'm not even allowing you to complete your question. Being gang raped at the age of 15 by 8 men, for me was a transformational moment because I was able to see the world differently. I was able to understand exclusion differently. I was able to experience what stigma means, what pain means, what anguish means, and what inequality means in actual sense. So for me it was, if not for that incident, I would not be doing what I'm doing today. And the drive, the anger, the motivation, the commitment, the passion, all comes from that incident. And so it's largely about anything that happens in your life, how you want to see it. It's a choice that you have to make. If you make a choice to look at it as heart-wrenching and painful, then you want to be a victim. And I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. And I not only survived that incident, but I want to believe that every child and every girl that we have rescued from sex trafficking or sex crime, we are imbibing that sense of that it is not you who's at fault. It's somebody has faulted you, and therefore you're a survivor and you have the power to come out of it. You don't even need anybody else around you to help you. You are so strong within you, and that's why I don't like to be connected to any heart-wrenching,
My
epitaphs
apologies.
around my name.
My apologies. Can you take us through this transformational journey? Was it one point where you decided that things had to change, not only for you, but for a lot of other people? Or was it something that shaped over a period of time?
Much before I got gang raped, I was involved in development work. I started at the age of 8. And by the age of 12, I was a hardcore activist. I had a school running for disadvantaged children. And it was
15?
At the age of 12.
At the age of 12?
At the age of 15, I was working in a village, working with Dalit women and children, providing near literacy campaign for them. And that's where I was taught a lesson in the village by people who felt that I'm kind of putting the wrong ideas in the minds of young girls. And I don't think they had anything.
In Hyderabad? I mean,
No,
where was it?
in Karnataka.
Karnataka.
In Karnataka. So when that night happened, what remained with me is not what happened, what the 8 men did to me. I don't even remember the faces, actually. But what remained with me is what happened afterwards. The way people around me treated me and the way my family kind of dealt with me. And one of the first kind of messages I was getting is that I have done some crime, that I have to be responsible for what happened to me. So the questions were, why did you go there? The questions to my parents was, given her too much of freedom. Because by this time I was like doing so much of social work, and so everybody blamed my parents for all that happened to me. That victimizing a victim for no fault is the triggering point in my life. And that anger is what started then. Luckily, I think my life is a providence, so I didn't require a mentor or somebody inspiring me. I inspired myself. And that's when I took a decision that the rest of my life, every breath, I will commit to fighting sex crime. And over a little time, I also came to the conclusion that one of the worst forms of sex crime is sex slavery.
Sorry, worst forms of sex
crime is sex slavery. We kind of, call it as a necessary evil. We call prostitution as a necessary evil. We think that it is okay that our men have libidos, which is like, unmeasurable, and therefore some child, some girl, some woman has to be there, to cater to that. And therefore it is like a necessity. I want to break that. And that's how the idea of Prajwala began. And at the age of 20, I started Prajwala. It's been a few decades now. We've rescued more than 21,000 women and children out of prostitution. And I think one of the things that we've been able to do is able to demonstrate to the world that it is possible to change. You don't need to, kind of justify and legitimize something and say this is necessary, we can't do anything about it, so just let us live with it. You don't need to live with it. If you strategize correctly, you can break that cycle. And the small initiative that we have made in Prajwala is kind of a small example, a micro example of possibility, that you don't need to tolerate sexual exploitation, and you don't need to tolerate commercial sexual exploitation of women and children. And Mahalakshmi, you need to also understand When we are talking about human beings and sexual exploitation, we're talking about 3-year-olds and 4-year-olds and 5-year-olds. So, when you start legitimizing, when you start endorsing and you start calling it, necessary evil and all things, you don't know what you are actually endorsing. Because maybe 20 years back, you see a 20-year-old girl. Just few months back, the youngest child that we have rescued is 2.5 years old from a brothel. And she was already used for pornography. So, we need to reflect what we speak, what we endorse, and the positions we take. And Prajwala probably is a demonstration that we don't need to endure everything.
Sure. How large is your organization right now? What is the strength and is it all, what is the organization like right now?
The organization is involved in several things. We have a 360 degrees approach in working on the issue of sex trafficking and sex crimes. At one end, we provide education as a way to prevent children whose mothers are in prostitution, so that there's a second generation prevention and the cycle can be broken there. There's the intergenerational prevention can be done. We also engage in the communities. We go to the schools, colleges, villages and all to sensitize and awaken the communities about the dangers of being trafficked. But I think our claim to fame is assisting the police in rescue work. We actually go with the police to rescue girls out of the brothels. We have a pan-India space. We have rescued girls from all over the country. But I think while rescue is a very James Bond kind of activity, it's like 1 day or 2 day or maybe large 10 days ka work. The larger work is rehabilitation, which takes long time. We're talking about human beings who have been raped 40 times, 50 times a day for weeks together, months together, years together, till some joker like me decides, ki, okay, we got the information and now we will rescue. And as we're sitting here and talking, you have GB Road just, 20 kilometers from here, next to Kamala Market Police Station, where close to 30% of the girls there are minors. So we're talking about every day that person getting sexually exploited by hundreds of men. So, restoring hope in their lives, making them believe that there's an alternate life possible, and making them believe that dignity is a possibility is a huge challenge, especially when the person does not believe in it. So the kind of persons that we rescue are people who are hostile to us, aggressive towards us, so much so that I have even a 12-year-old telling me on my face, मैं अपनी मर्जी से करती हूँ, आपको क्या प्रॉब्लम है? मैं धंधा करती हूँ क्योंकि मुझे अच्छा लगता है. तो from that point to making her believe that she's a victim of exploitation and making her believe that she can survive.
So what does that conversation really, what kind of a conversation do you really have to translate them to think?
Oh, it's a big challenging conversation, meaning, if I have to describe a rescue, what I can remember of any rescue is chappals on my face and abuses on my face. So when you pull that person out, that is what you're engaging with. A very hostile person who's self-harming, who wants to hurt themselves, who want to run away from your shelter and looks at you as an abuser and not as a savior. And like we are with this halo, that we are all coming to do some help for you. And here's somebody who's saying that I don't need your help, get out. And I don't even want to stay in your home. Your home is a prison, So making her believe is not an overnight thing. It's not like ऐसे छूमंतर में नहीं होता है. It requires a lot of trauma care, counseling, and a lot of psychosocial interventions. Putting her in education or livelihood training is another challenge. Today we have our children doing medicine, children are doing pharmacy, law, but that didn't happen overnight. It took years for us to reach there. Of course, social reintegration is a larger challenge. Right now, we're all busy getting ready. Next week, 6 of our girls are getting married. So that's like one big event in our home. Family, we have a full-time staff of around 265 full-time staff. 50% of them are survivors of trafficking themselves. That's our strength, and perhaps one of the only few volunteers in the organization.
Sure. Shaheen, this essentially getting into the social space is really about personal passion. I mean, it's driven by a very strong level of commitment towards a certain cause because you associate with it. My question is, as you grow, initial drive is really individual passion. As the organization grows, how do you really scale it up effectively?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, my mind is just with Sunita right now. I've had the real honor and privilege of seeing a little bit of her work. I was on GB Road yesterday trying to see how we can support a young entrepreneur working there as well. And yeah, I just feel incredibly honored to be on this panel, but Sunita, to be with you and the courage and the love. She didn't mention the number of times she's had attacks on her own life, and it's very rare to be in a space with a human being of that much moral fiber. So thank you for the inspiration.
Absolutely.
I think for me, scale has just been about thinking about how we can be a multiplier. When I see the size of the opportunity with education, we're talking about 320 million children in the country who deserve an excellent education. I just think about how can we get more and more people to care about that problem. And so our Teach for India model is just trying to say, can we get people who have never thought about working in education, and specifically for kids who need it the most, to be passionate enough to go out there and do that. And so over the years, the beautiful thing about my work is it's just the work of creating more and more leaders who feel passionately about changing kids' lives. I was this morning in a small school in Haryana where we walked in 900 children, and I wanted to break down and cry seeing the state of this school. But the other side of the truth is the fact that we have alumni in that school now who are working to activate the community and specifically the school management committee to change that school. And so that's really, I think, how we've thought about scale, that how do we get more and more people to care, to be equipped, to understand what it means to really be on the ground, and then to learn how to work together so that they can have greater impact.
Sure. Time's up. That's really unfortunate that the time is up, and such an interesting, touching, inspiring discussion. But just one quick minute to just say, what would be your advice to somebody who wants to work in the social space?
There are lots of work in social space. Is huge. There is volunteerism, and then you take social issues. And for us, my organization works on financial services to women. So once you have selected which area you want to work, then you have to equip yourself to do it further. You know, like the question you asked, like when we started it, it was volunteerism. Right. Not anymore. So you want actually professionally qualified people coming more into the sector. Definitely now I use lots of company secretaries, chartered accountants and all. They are not going to come very cheap for you. So it's important for you to also increase the kind of resources available to you to make use of those talents. But my problem is we like women to come. So, and then that is where the challenge is. Women have lots of problems, and then they have, I don't say it is a problem, it is a kind of a dual role which she has to play. So family is important, and then career is important. So retaining the women in the sector is quite a challenge, particularly for us. That is one. But I get lots of women, so I have said that 3 years, 4 years, if you give, it's fine. Then you can go and then you get me someone else. So it is important, more and more women should come. Like I actually take classes for women in the banking sector. Oh my God, the courses when we do, they start crying because they are not able to get the promotion because they have to sacrifice the promotions, and that because that it comes with transfers and all. So balancing act is something that it is there at the low level, low income level, as well as the higher income level. So how to work it out? And people are not like Ritu's comfortable where you can expect your parents and grandparents to take care of the children. So their support system is crumbling day by day, so it becomes very, very difficult to retain women. But as an institution that we insist on having women, so I think it will, with the challenge working is much more interesting because the country throws up lots of problems now and then, so we have to work it out. But financial services, you need highly qualified people.
Sure. Shaheen, one message to women wanting to work in the social space.
Yeah, I think mine is just take the first step, or if you're brave like one of my co-panelists, take the first leap. And do it with a lot of love. I wish I could take you to this moment yesterday on GB Road where I went to see a school and these were children of commercial sex workers. And when we entered the school, they were lining up to hug us so tightly and they were so excited and so open. And I think that's what this work has been for me. Just, I feel so blessed to have been the recipient of just so much love. It's just that first step or that first leap.
How about you, Rukshmani?
I have this message that I've seen around women not supporting the women. And I think this is a best platform where I could speak that please support women. Because it's very, very important. I've seen why men supporting men. I've seen they have their own gender which they are supporting. So to all the women here, I suppose, if you support your gender, I think आधी जंग तो हमने ऐसी जीत कर ली है. तो आप सिर्फ तो that is very important. Your sister or your भाभी, start with home. आप घर से शुरुआत करिए, फिर ऑफिस तक पहुँचिए, क्योंकि हमें ये तो करना पड़ेगा. हम इतनी women empowerment की बात कर रहे हैं, तो let's start doing it today. यहीं से आप शुरू करें कि हम महिलाओं की एक दूसरे की मदद करेंगे. I think the road is successful. We will make it happen. बस आप लोगों का सबका साथ चाहिए. यही मैसेज है मेरी तरफ से. तो I think we'll able to do it. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful. Thank you, Vijay Lakshmi. I think Outlook Business, this is a fantastic platform. I think. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Sure.
धन्यवाद.
Sunita.
If you believe in a safe world for women and children, please don't invest in women and children. In taekwondo classes and self-defense classes and pepper sprays. Please invest in men and boys. Please invest in bringing up your sons properly. If the attitude of men changes, it'll be a better, safe world for all of us.
Thank you so much, ladies. I'm absolutely humbled. And Sunita, really sorry for the wrong use of adjectives. I hope you guys enjoyed the discussion and are suitably inspired to take this forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those highly inspiring stories. I'd now like to invite on stage Outlook Business WoW 2017 awardee and CEO, PM Relocations, Ms. Akansha Bhargava, to please join me on stage to present our panelists with a token of our appreciation. Ladies and gentlemen, can we hear it once again for our power panel? That's what I call them. And of course, now that I have one more power woman with me on stage, Akansha ma'am, I'm going to request you to quickly share with us your WoW experience. Can we have a hand mic, please? Okay. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I think we are still absorbing what we just heard, and I think it was so overwhelming and so lovely to hear from all of you. I think I'm one of the youngest here, so I think it's so important to hear these inspirational stories from people like you, so that we start changing our life right now. I'm obviously not in the social sector, but yeah, I'm definitely trying my best at my workplace, at my home, to empower women. I run a relocation company, so I shift people. I shift homes, I shift families across the world. Obviously, it's not a glamorous industry, and people don't really associate women to it. And I have a lot of packers that work with me, and I believe that their families are my responsibility. So I make sure that, whoever is associated with my office, the blue-collar staff, their children are not going to live the same life as their parents are living. So I'm trying to make sure that their daughters go to school, their children go to school, their boys go to school, and they don't really make them what they do in their life. So I am really thankful to Outlook to have people like them and us here, so that we can talk, exchange ideas. And I think I really go back with the message that women should support each other. And I hope that with my little contribution to the industry, where I have about 500 people who work with me, I can make a little difference. And I have more stories to share later. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much once again to our power panel. Thank you so much. Thank you.